Number 5. Dr. Phlox. Phlox is a Denoblian and was the chief medical officer on board the NX-01 Enterprise. Phlox was born on a planet called Denobia in the Denobian Trioxid system around the late 21st century. Interestingly, Denobian men will usually take 3 wives, and each wife will usually take 3 husbands. Phlox has 5 children, which the youngest, a son, is adopted. Phlox has received many different degrees in science and medicine, some including veterinary, dentistry, hematology, botanical pharmacology, and psychiatry, but none in warp theory or quantum physics. Phlox spent some time on Earth working as a doctor at Starfleet Medical before assisting and sustaining the life of a Klingon by the name of Kling. Afterwards, Captain Jonathan Archer requested to have Phlox serve as the Chief Medical Officer for the Enterprise. Phlox served on the Enterprise from 2151 to 2161, after which the NX-01 Enterprise was decommissioned. Number 4. Dr. Julian Bashir. Julian is a human augment and served as Chief Medical Officer for the space station Deep Space Nine. Julian was born on Earth in Great Britain around late 2341 to the parents of Richard and Amicia Bashir. At a young age, Julian struggled in life. He wasn't considered very bright. He was falling drastically behind his classmates, who seemed to be excelling both physically and academically. Just before Julian's 7th birthday, his parents took him to a hospital on Aegean Prime where he received a treatment known as accelerated critical neural pathway formation. This treatment resequenced his DNA, enhancing his mental abilities, causing his IQ to jump 5 points every day for several weeks. The treatments he received also improved his reflexes, hand-eye coordination, vision, stamina, and even his height and weight. The Bashirs had to keep their son's genetic augmentation a secret because it was illegal to have any genetic augmentation done in the Federation after what happened in the Eugenics Wars and the very dangerous augment known as Khan Noonien Singh. Thus, returning to Earth, Julian's family moved to a different city, enrolling Julian in a new school and falsifying his records to keep his augmentation a secret. There was a time when Julian really enjoyed playing tennis and was considered good enough to play at the professional level. But back at the age of 10, a tragic event happened while Julian and his family were living on Inverna 2. He and his father were caught in an ionic storm. They found shelter with a girl who eventually became ill. Later, that girl passed away because no one there knew that a nearby herb could be used to save her. This event helped influence Julian to one day become a doctor because he realized what he really wanted was to help people. Julian always retained a love for tennis even into adulthood. Julian graduated second in his class. Because of his augmentation, he purposely got a question on his final exam wrong to not bring attention to himself, and was offered his choice of any job in Starfleet. He chose Space Station Deep Space Nine because it was the most remote outpost and he wanted a chance to study real frontier medicine. On Stardate 46379, which would have been September 5th, 2369, at the age of 27 and the rank of Lieutenant Junior Grade, Julian arrived at DS9 to take his post as the Chief Medical Officer for the station. Julian served on DS9 from 2369 to 2376. Number 3. Dr. Leonard McCoy. McCoy is a human born on Earth around the year 2227 in the state of Georgia in the United States of America. His father's name is David McCoy. Leonard McCoy was married twice and he had one daughter, Joanna McCoy. In around 2266, McCoy joined the USS Enterprise NCC 1701 as the Life Science Department head and the Chief Medical Officer. McCoy was given the nickname Bones by none other than Captain James D. Kirk, in reference to McCoy being a doctor. Throughout most of McCoy's time on the Enterprise, Kirk referred to McCoy as Bones, except on an away mission to Pyrrhus 7, which Kirk avoided calling McCoy Bones, as instead called him Doc because they were shackled and hanging next to a skeleton. One note that McCoy hated using the transporter and feared that your molecules are disassembled and then reassembled in a different location. And what if your molecules aren't reassembled correctly or didn't all show up in the right location? McCoy served a combined total of 27 years on the Enterprise and the Enterprise A. If you're liking this video so far, hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you're not subscribed. Honorable mention: Dr. Catherine Pulaski. Pulaski served as Chief Medical Officer on board the USS Enterprise D in the year 2365. Pulaski is a human born on Earth from Poland around the year 2318. Daughter to Sabina and Georgios Pulaski. Pulaski was married 3 times. Pulaski also had an aversion to using the transporter. Pulaski once was involved in a situation alongside Lieutenant Commander Data and Lieutenant Geordi LaForge where they were on the holodeck enjoying a Sherlock Holmes mystery simulation where Data told the computer to create a scenario to give them a Sherlock Holmes type problem, but not one written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, which led the computer to create Holmes' nemesis, Professor James Moriarty. Moriarty had an almost independent and AI consciousness that led him to take control of the Enterprise's computer and thus the Enterprise itself. Captain Picard convinced Moriarty to relinquish control of the ship's computer as he would make sure to find a way for Moriarty to be able to leave the holodeck. At one point before Pulaski ever joined the Enterprise, she was once in a romantic relationship with Commander William Riker's father, Kyle Riker, at Starbase 515. Pulaski also performed heart surgery on Captain Picard because his artificial heart was failing. Pulaski served on the Enterprise D from 2365 to 2366. Number 2. Dr. Beverly Crusher. Beverly Crusher was born Beverly Howard in Copernicus City, which is located on Earth's moon, aka Luna, on October 13, 2324. Beverly's parents were Paul and Isabel Howard. As a young child, Beverly's parents passed away, and thus she was raised by her grandmother, Felicia Howard, who Beverly lovingly called Nana. At one point, while Beverly was living with her grandmother, a terrible disaster struck the colony at Ervata 3. During this time, Felicia learned how to use herbs, roots, and the like to make medicine, since the normal medical supplies were all gone. Beverly was inspired by this, which led her later to a medical career. Beverly attended Starfleet Academy from 2342 to 2350. It was during this time that she earned her medical degree and became a doctor. While at the academy, Beverly met and fell in love with Jack Crusher. Jack proposed to Beverly through a gag gift. It was a book entitled How to Advance Your Career Through Marriage. They were married in 2348. Beverly and Jack had a son around 2348. They named him Wesley Crusher. Jack died on an away mission while serving aboard the USS Stargazer in 2353. Picard was Jack's commanding officer and good friend, but was unable to save his friend on the away mission. Beverly became the Chief Medical Officer of the U.S. Enterprise D in 2364. She served aboard the Enterprise for a year before leaving and becoming the head of Starfleet Medical in 2365. But after a year away, Beverly returned to the Enterprise to resume her job as Chief Medical Officer. Beverly served on the Enterprise D for about 6 years. At number 1. The Doctor. The Doctor was an emergency medical holographic program, or EMH for short. The Doctor was created by Dr. Louis Zimmerman. In fact, he was made in Zimmerman's image. In case you're wondering, Dr. Zimmerman is a human male. The Doctor's activation date was 2371. He was only ever meant to be an emergency use, but the USS Voyager, the starship the Doctor was assigned to, was hurled through space to eventually end up in the Delta Quadrant. The Doctor became the Chief Medical Officer aboard Voyager shortly after arriving in the Delta Quadrant because the human doctor and medical staff had all passed away from the violent way the ship was brought to the Delta Quadrant. The Doctor went through an incredible arc during his time aboard Voyager. He started out cold and with a terrible bedside manner to becoming warm and caring and having the biggest heart. We got to journey along with the Doctor as he would gain and grow friendships, develop a family, learn what it means to lose those he loves, and save people and aliens, and even become an icon for an entire race of aliens. At one point, he was a student learning humanity, just to one day become the teacher to Seven of Nine to develop her humanity. The Doctor was married twice. His first wife was a holographic wife by the name of Charlene. She was an experiment he was running to see what it would be like to have a family. He also had 2 holographic children. His son's name was Jeffrey and his daughter was called Belle. He learned what it felt like to lose someone while his holographic daughter got injured and eventually passed away. Later, in an alternate timeline, he had a human wife by the name of Lana. At one point, Voyager and her crew went back in time to the mid-1990s, in which a man stole 29th century tech to become wealthy and famous. He also stole the Doctor, but it was through this event that the Doctor received his mobile emitter and became footloose and fancy-free. The Doctor has had so many highs and lows, like the time he fought Grendel, or the time he became an evil version of himself. There was the time he became the Emergency Command Hologram, aka the ECH, or the time he traveled back to the Alpha Quadrant to aid the USS Prometheus along with his EMH Mark II counterpart from being taken by the Romulans. Another time he was trapped on a planet for 3 years, even though only minutes had passed for Voyager and her crew due to a time differential. Speaking of being an icon, on one planet, the inhabitants were fascinated by the Doctor's singing voice. He became a worldwide sensation to these aliens because they had never heard anyone sing before, and it was as if his singing almost had a mathematical quality to it, which is something that intrigued these aliens. He even became an author. The Doctor had one of the most interesting journeys through life in almost all of Star Trek. The Doctor served as the Chief Medical Officer on board Voyager from 2371 to 2378. Thank you for watching this video, and again, if you have not already, please hit that like button, subscribe if you're not subscribed, and I will catch all of you next time.
Who are you?
A friend.